It's been mostly ignored by the traditional medical communities. If you can rearrange molecular structure, anything is possible. Frequency plus intent equals healing. A very dear friend who's a very well-known author and a very well-known teacher, and he's very, very concerned about us losing our humanism to AI, getting back to AI.
Almost every guest I ask about that.
And I think ultimately if that happens, we're going to lose a whole part of our brain function by, giving it over to an AI to do and lose an aspect of our higher consciousness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. Okay.
All right, great.
Yay. Well, thank you. I mean, what an interesting way that we connected.
Totally.
We're new neighbors.
Yes, that's right.
And what inspired you to move into this office suite?
We had for over 20 years a 2-bedroom condo in North Boulder that was our sort of shipping and all sorts of phenomena in terms of the spirit music healing sounds business. And lately, we've been able to basically find other realms of people who did, they would ship and handle for us, et cetera. So we just take the order. So stuff has gone mainly online. Yeah. So the need for a large office, so we're taking the large office, converting that back to a condo for an apartment. Mm-hmm. And Alec, who's our office manager, our operations manager, is right next door, and he's also a great teacher. Mm-hmm. And he's himself co-authored a book, major bestseller on sound healing. So he's a great being. I trust you'll get a nice resonance going with him.
Well, it's been great to connect with you guys so far. We've only met once before and immediately wanted you to be on the podcast. So thanks for saying yes. Would you give us the 30,000-foot view of maybe your journey and kind of some of the milestones along your path so far?
Okay, Stephen. My name is Jonathan Goldman, and I have been in the field of using sound and music as therapeutic tools since 1980, or actually a little bit before, which is like making it like 45 years or something like that. My experience doing that, and I'm the author of about a half a dozen different books, including, here, I'll just grab this one.
Please.
This is the 30th anniversary edition, just got released a couple of years ago, of a book called Healing Sounds, which was my first book and really considered one of the classics in the field of sound healing. But I've got about 6 books, and new ones being released, and about 30 different award-winning recordings that are on Spotify, Amazon, Apple, all this other stuff. That
YouTube, you've got some recordings out there with millions of streams.
And I got, I think it's Jonathan Goldman Official is my YouTube channel. Yikes. And all this stuff, and trying to be present as I can be in the world of today. Having been in the field for this amount of time, Stephen, it's I'm stepping back a little bit and just watching the wheel go round and round, as John Lennon once said, because there's so much going on. And if the opportunity arises for me to talk to people, whether it's through podcasts or online teaching or very, very rare public appearances, because traveling just is not what it used to be. I did the first workshop at the, I'm going to say London School of Music, and that's not what it is. Right now.
They changed their name or
No. It's opposite Royal Albert Hall, and I'm losing it right now. Where's my wife Andy to give me the name? But we did that for a weekend with about 500 people in it. It was just an incredible experience. Very, very well, the major music school in London, and that was a great opportunity. Of course, it's meaningless if I can't remember the name of it, but that's okay. Many things go on here and there. But anyway, getting back. So I've been doing a lot of stuff for a long time. Before that, I'd graduated film school at Boston University. I actually did some degree work in the School of Journalism at Boston University and began playing in one of the many rock and roll bands that I've been playing in since I was about 15 years old. And this one particularly became pretty well known. And I was playing in a seaside bar in a place called Marshfield, Massachusetts, which is on Cape Cod. And I remember coming back from a break, picking up my guitar, putting it on with the rest of the band, and I opened up with a song, and as I'm looking out at the audience, I became aware that the ambiance of the club was one of kind of negativity and violence. Now, the alcohol and the other intoxicants that people were imbibing in were also inducing this atmosphere, but the music that I was creating, which was kind of dark, it was pretty intense, if you like, new wave type of music. One could almost call it new wave punk, yeah, believe it or not. And I looked out and I had that realization that there was this ambiance of darkness, and I had this thought, because Stephen, I'd probably been playing professionally for about 15 years before that, because I began playing when I was pretty young. The only guitar player, or one of the few guitar players, where I grew up in a place called West Orange, New Jersey. And it was interesting because all the time that I've been playing it had been a matter of ego. Look at me, aren't I cool, aren't I cool? And all of a sudden I was like, wow, what if music could be used to make people feel better, to make them sort of uplift them, as opposed to sort of whip them into an angry frenzy. And within a week, that thought just shifted about 10 degrees for me. Like, what if sound can be used to heal? And from there, I remember about a week later, I was handed a sheet of paper which had a workshop flyer on it about healing with music by a woman named Sarah Benson. And I took this workshop from her. And Sarah, since then, became a very dear friend. She was the godmother of our son Joshua, and she's passed on to the angelic realms, but just a lovely, lovely, radiant being. And she put me in the middle of a circle. There were about 30 people around the circle, and I held this quartz crystal. I didn't know what it was, but a handheld quartz crystal, and I held it to me, and my name was chanted, and I went out of my body, and I was transported to this amethyst pyramid in the woods. And when the chanting stopped, it came back to my body, and I thought, wow, I got to find out more about this, meaning the quartz crystal, and also about sound. And that just began my journey into sound, because it was transformative. It was almost a psychotropic experience, if you like. From there, I literally had this very, very interesting opportunity. Sarah invited me to go to this meeting of people who were using sound for healing in the Boston area, which is where I was living at the time in a place called Lexington, Massachusetts. And I went there, and it was fabulous because I was really, really psyched, if you like, to find out more about this stuff. And in the late 70s, early 80s, so, weren't a whole lot of books, weren't a whole lot of CDs, weren't a whole lot of records, albums on the whole subject. So here there were 15 people. And one of them had just written I think it was perhaps the intro to a book that was going to be published. His name was Dr. Randall McClellan, and the book was called The Healing Forces of Music, and he read from the opening from it, and it was just thrilling stuff. And I met all these other people, a fellow by the name of Robert Gass, who had actually Spring Hill Music, which was in this particular building that we were in right now. 20 years ago, he had his office there, and his stuff was major, probably the first, if you like, extended chant recordings of Om Namah Shivaya and other types of things that may even be a generation before you. But it really literally shifted the planet with choral music, something called Wings of Song, and this choral music singing these ancient mantric chants. And it was, life-changing, really, actually. He was one of the people there, and there was Sarah and a few other people. And I said, oh, this is great, this is great. When's the next meeting? And they said, this is the last one. I said, yeah, we can't find anybody who wants to organize these things, and we don't have time for it. And I said, I'll do it. I said, okay, I'll do it. So I took on, beyond being the new kid on the block, I literally, had just been slightly initiated into the field of sound.
Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the U.S. to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the U.S. in soil in a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1-week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the U.S. without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.
And I took on creating what became the Sound Healers Association, which is still in existence today as being the oldest and largest professional organization of people working in the field of sound. And from there, I was on my own collecting all this data on using sound and music for healing, mostly sound for resonating the chakras. That was what I was really interested in at the time. I then somehow went to Lesley University, which was a college at Cambridge, and I created a self-study program researching the uses of sound and music for healing, and I got a master's in that, which was very cool, and then was able to turn a lot of that later on into a book. In fact, the book that I just held up, Healing Sounds, was based upon a lot of the research and information that I had gotten from creating that, my master's thesis from there. It evolved into there. And that just, from there, I began to teach and share with other people. And I took my record company, which had been a new wave record company, and it became one of the first new age music record companies. First person who came on was a fellow by the name of Sam McClellan, no relation to the person Randall McClellan who wrote the book on the healing forces of music, but he was the first guest that we had at the Sound Healers Association. We used to have a meeting, and he presented his work on that he had discovered a system of using different notes to balance and resonate the, if you like, elements of the, there are 5 elements in acupuncture and in Eastern medicine: wind, air, water, fire, and metal, believe it or not.
I'm metal.
Oh, okay, so you know about this stuff. And it was quite amazing because at the first presentation, there were a couple of acupuncturists at this group that came. There were about 30 to 50 people that came. And he got up there, and we recorded him, of course, because I stuck a microphone like this in front of him, and Shure, so it was definitely, reasonable quality into a cassette player, but it's still. And among other things, he had a acupuncturist come over and check someone using kinesiology, etc., to determine imbalances that they might have had. And then we listened to the whole suite of music that he had done. It was quite stunning. And afterwards, he checked this person, and of course, the imbalances were gone. I said, well, this is really pretty cool. And while I'm listening to music, an inner voice said, this is the first person that you have to get on your new revised record label. And we did that, coming up with, Music of the 5 Elements, which at the time, which probably was about 1982, 83, was just, if you like, it took the field by storm, and it was quite successful. Then after that, I got another fellow by the name of Don Campbell, who was at the time very well known. He passed away, and then our memories are, shall we say, almost useless these days in terms of people have gone more than 5 years. But he, among other things, did a book called The Mozart Effect, probably in the early 2000s, which was really influenced and brought the idea of using classical music as a tool for, if you like, heightening consciousness and enhancing people's learning abilities. And he had a number of top 10 Billboard classical music chartbusters of just taking pieces of Mozart that would be used therapeutically for people, which is just a whole different phenomena. So watching the field grow, spirit music changing, beginning to teach, and it just continues. Watching now, as everyone is working with their crystal bowls and Tibetan bowls and doing sound baths, and my original music that I still do. If I've got 30 different albums, they're all designed to be sonic environments. The name sound bath, very cool, that caught on. But sonic environment was just the same sort of thing. And it's been a really interesting idea that exposing people to 30 minutes to an hour's worth of powerfully created fields of sound can shift them on an emotional level, physical level, spiritual level, and more so. So it's great that this is happening. We give thanks. I'm just watching this, and we'll share some of the claims, I guess, that are being made by people in terms of what sound can do and what sound, which is kind of interesting because on a level. Here's a quote from the New York Times, February 8th, 1988. I just remember that date because but it was from the New York Times science section. Sound shaped in a dazzling tool can make, break, or rearrange molecular structure. So if you can rearrange molecular structure, anything is possible. I'm going to take a break.
Yeah,
take
please.
a drink of tea.
Yeah, what kind of tea do you have there?
This is Egyptian licorice yogi. It's yogi tea, but I really like it as a soothing.
Yeah, licorice tea. I'll drink that on occasion. Is that good for digestion?
It seems to be a real good throat coater.
Oh, okay.
And I like licorice as so that's one that I've sort of, when I do podcasts and talk to people or even do presentations, if possible, that's when I try to manifest.
So you shared that there's things that these sound baths can do and can't do. What are some of the testimonials? What are some of the reasons people go to sound baths and keep coming back?
I think it reawakens something that they have forgotten, and that is the power of sound to shift them. Number one, it just allows people to get into a state of relaxation because a lot of these sounds are just very soothing. My music, for example, it's been very popular, and there's a reason for that. Some of it's specifically designed to resonate the chakras, such as a best-selling recording that I had that won the Album of the Year through the Visionary Network, and that was literally one of the first recordings ever designed to resonate the chakras. So you had to work with 7 different sounds. At least that was my thought form or my belief.
Now, the very first thing that I listened to of yours is Chakra's 7-minute tune-up.
Ah, yes, indeed. Well, that's okay. So that's all 7 minutes because people don't have time, right?
Yeah.
So what can we do in 7 minutes?
And with that, you're doing that. Would you call it a humming along, or you are?
Well, there are
chanting along.
Yeah, I would say you're toning. There are different sounds. Oh, this is a whole. Let me get back to either that or to answer the thing about the sound baths, because one of the great things that sound baths do is just seem to bring for a lot of people almost instant relaxation. And now I could be sitting here, you could be sitting here with your bowls or your bells or whatnot, and people gave themselves the time to be listening and to, if you like, experience it. But as a reality, even if we had the best instruments right now, unless these sounds were then, because this is being recorded, played back and listened to really well with headphones or whatnot, most people wouldn't give it the attention. But if it's live and you're there in person, they've sort of made an unconscious commitment to be, as Ram Dass would say, to be here now, and just allowing that. So the sounds, quartz crystals create very, very lovely, powerful tones. There are 2 ways that sound affects us. One is called psychoacoustics, and this is where the sound goes into our ears, into our brain, affecting our nervous system, our heart rate, our respiration, our brain waves. The other is called vibroacoustics, And this is where sound goes into our body, affecting us on a cellular level, going deep in.
Is that where you feel it?
Yes, right. And that's perhaps the most, well, I'm going to say it's been mostly ignored by the traditional medical communities. There's been a fair amount of work with what sound is doing to the brain. And it's very, very cool because obviously you can alter brain waves, you can enhance different states of consciousness using sound. But you can also, if sound can shift and change molecular structure, that's mostly designed for the sound that's entering you on a physical level, your body going down to you on a cellular level, creating shifts and changes in that. So that's
been proven?
Yes.
Wow. I mean, I believe it. I've seen what sound can do to water, and I've seen water shift. And we're mostly water, and why wouldn't it shift us as well? I certainly feel it.
And that's called cymatics. Cymatics. And that is a name given to the work of studying the effects of sound upon, I used to say inorganic matter, but I realized if you talk about water, I like to think of water as being organic matter.
Of course, it's living.
So, but he took plastic paste, different liquids, and even metal filings, as well as water, and would basically put them on a plate, have a speaker underneath there, and project different frequencies, and it would make almost shapes very much like this piece of artwork there, different frequencies creating different forms. Very cool. And I have a dear friend named John Stewart Reed who has probably taken over the work of this. Was Dr. Hans Jenny from Switzerland. He was a medical doctor, and he was also a visionary. So this was in the 70s or whatnot. And he's got a couple of wonderful books that another friend of mine named Jeff Volk put out, basically called Cymatics. And you can see these really lovely pictures that have been taken. But now on the internet, this is caught on, and a lot of people are doing this in a really radical way of showing the effects of sound to create different forms.
Do you think people like the bass so loud in their cars because that's when they get to have that felt sense of it? Because not often do I get to feel sound unless I'm at a sound bath. I'm playing my own bowls or tuning forks, or I've got the bass real loud. I'm at a concert and I'll have earplugs in because I just want to feel it.
Yes. Okay. So talking about vibroacoustics, all right. Here you go, kids. Going to teach you a little bit about sound. Sound travels as a wave. These waves are measured in cycles per second, how many of these waves occur. And that's called its frequency or its hertz, Hertz. So if it creates 100 waves a second, it's 100 cycles a second or 100 hertz. Now we hear from around 16 of these cycles per second, very lowest frequency we can hear, although we can feel more, believe it or not. We can hear up to 16,000. But our finny friends in the ocean, the dolphins, can hear upwards of 880,000, which is more than 10 times our highest level of hearing, let alone being able to make a sound. So just because something is not audible doesn't mean that there isn't a sound being made, which is very, very important. I'm going to just keep going on this loop for a second because the next thing is, okay, how does sound heal? And our ancient mystics and our modern physicists are in agreement that everything is in vibration, from the electrons moving around the nucleus of an atom to planets and distant galaxies moving around their sun. They're all putting out a vibration. Conceptually, if it's a vibration, then it can be perceived as being a sound, even though it's out of our spec of hearing. Every organ, every bone, every tissue, every part of our body is in a state of vibration. And when we're basically feeling healthy, we say we're in sound health. We're like this orchestra that is playing this overall symphony of the self, suite of the self. But what happens if the second violin player loses their sheet music? They begin to play out of tune, they're playing out of harmony. pretty soon the entire string section is off. Pretty soon the entire orchestra is off. And this is akin to, if, our metaphor, the body being this orchestra and having lost the sheet music, the body, the part of the body that is vibrating out of harmony, out of its natural, healthy, resonant frequency, is vibrating out of ease, or it's diseased. And the idea of using sound to basically put the body back into its normal, healthy resonance is the basic idea of using sound as a healing modality. But I'm also going to suggest that this is not only sound, but almost every holistic therapy that I know of, whether it's working with plants, plant medicine, chromotherapy, which is light, acupuncture, chiropractic, the idea of restoring balance to that part of the body, brain, or energy field is basically predominantly found in sound.
Now, when is it helpful to have sound that's out of harmony? Can there be medicine?
That's a great question. You keep going with your question, though. I get where you're going.
What I've experienced in different medicine settings, sitting with psychedelic plants in particular, many times they will bring in sounds in disharmony to help bring up the wound, the disease to the surface so that it can be purged out.
Yes.
And then the beautiful light, positive music comes in behind it.
Yes. That is very true. And that requires actually a whole lot more skill, more of a skill set for people to be able to deal with the disharmonious frequencies that people are releasing. Because when that is released, well, my wife is a psychotherapist, for example, and here, this is from our Healing Sounds Intensive, and we would have, let's say, 100 people there for 10 days, very cool, and we would have about 10 people who are clinicians, therapists, so that if somebody were to have a meltdown, which happens as you're releasing stuff, then there would be qualified people who could take care of them. The only, perhaps, getting back to the whole sound bath thing, is that sometimes I have heard of people who are, shall we say, in sound baths, who are having, all of a sudden, they were exposed to beautiful, fine frequencies, and yet something within them released some trauma. And because of the trauma, they were really very fragile and almost, if you like, cracked, and unfortunately not necessarily put together, because this is not warning anybody, but this does happen, and if somebody's doing a sound bath, just be aware and check in on your audience, because the power of sound is so very, very powerful that you need to make sure that even if you're creating the most beautiful music, that it hasn't somehow unleashed something that needs tending. And it's usually very easy to take care of somebody, just hold them or give them a space to cry, give them a space to release, and then have them take some breaths, or, a few techniques. But one of the aspects of the healing process is exactly what you said. I don't want to say releasing the demons, but it's something like that, where the dark aspect comes out and gets replaced by the light. So that was a great question. I don't think you need to have nasty sounds in order to do that, though, once again, because this has happened with something as simple as bowls, bells, or whatnot, because by being in a state of relaxation, perhaps something that's been inside that wants to come out can finally come out, because people are so stressed out that they hold it in, and then all of a sudden they're lost because they've never done it before, and it's very frightening for them.
Now, how important is the prayer or the intention set by the facilitator, and then even by the attendees? In the sound baths and medicinal healings that I've sat with indigenous people of North America and South America, there's a very strong container. And if that container isn't a healthy container, people can actually get really sick and hurt.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm going to finish talking about vibroacoustics and then get into that, because that's massively important. But the idea is sound travels as a waveform. And you were saying about the sound that where you can really feel it, right? It's usually the low frequencies. There is a sweet spot, probably about 30 of these cycles a second to around 60, going up to 90, and maybe ultimately 120. And that's mostly the bandwidth that you have for creating the sounds that really affect the physical body. And those are, if you like, the vibroacoustic frequencies. And people nowadays, everybody's searching for the magic frequency. And so they've now gotten to 40 hertz, 40 cycles a second as being the one. It isn't, kids. It's a whole bandwidth. We're all unique, pliable, and flexible. So there's a whole spectrum of sound. But if you like, vibroacoustic frequencies are around 30 to around 60 to 90 to 120. And those are, of course, bass frequencies. Okay, now on to intention. Let me take a breath.
Please.
So, Stephen, I was finishing my dissertation at Lesley University, and I had a pile of papers about Yo-Hi. And I'm in front of my computer, which was using a DOS operating system, dark screen, amber letters. I come from a family of doctors, father, grandfather, brother, all medical doctors. So I had a pretty good, at the time, developed left brain. And I was going to create Goldman's, if you like, encyclopedia of sound healing, where I was going to come up with the frequency that was going to work for all different things. Because I had been collecting all this information for about 2 or 3 years from different doctors, musicians, psychics, healers, you name it, and they were sending me information about what the frequencies that they were using, the sounds that they were using, the mantras that they were using. And I was going to put them all together, and because I'd just been collecting them, and I was now going to correlate them. Start putting it together. I'm in front of the computer and about to input information, but I'm realizing these different people are not in agreement with each other. You have Dr. X, and he's using a specific set of frequencies for one organ. Dr. Y, a different set of frequencies for the same organ. Spiritual Master A using a particular mantra for a particular chakra. Spiritual Master B using a different mantra for the same chakra, or same mantra for a different chakra. And I'm rocking back and forth in this chair going, how can this be? How can this be? This doesn't make sense. This doesn't make sense. And this inner voice says, it is not only the frequency of the sound that creates the effect. It is also the intention of the person making and receiving the sound. And I wrote down this formula: frequency plus intent equals healing. And perhaps you can show that on the screen, or I'll just repeat it again. Frequency plus intent equals healing. Frequency, once again, is the number of vibrations per second of a sound. But intent is, if like, the encodement of consciousness that is put on the sound. My friend Stephen Halpern at one point said that sound is a carrier wave of consciousness. Bingo. That's so very, very true. And after I had this revelation, and I'm teaching a little bit, and I'm sharing with these scientists and doctors, Dr. So-and-so, have you ever thought about the importance of intention? They looked at me like I was a man from another planet, which I well may be, but they weren't supposed to know that. And then, blessed be, over the years, you have people such as Wayne Dyer, who did a PBS special and wrote a book called The Power of Intention. A man by the name of Masaru Emoto. You may have seen his work with water.
Yes.
And he would take distilled water and he would put different, if you like, sometimes they were imprinted words on it, or he would put different
gratitude, love.
Yes.
Or then he'd put hateful things as well.
Right. And hate looked like mud. Oh, and then he would take...
It looks very like 90-degree angles, versus the loving would look more like this. It would look like a snowflake.
Well, look like very much like mud. He would take this, once again, distilled water. He would freeze it, And then as it would unfroze using a device called a dark field microscope, he would basically photograph this water, and it would take on incredible either geometric shapes, if it was positive thoughts, positive music, or look like, really, from my perspective, mud.
Okay.
And on a level, there are dozens and dozens. You can go all over the internet. We have some great ones on our Healing Sounds website, which were done with his permission, before things really got out of hand. People just took stuff and put it on the internet, which is just great.
And is that healingsounds.com?
Yeah.
What a great .com.
Yes.
Nice one.
Yeah. Had a whole lot of others, and we can talk about them later. But yeah, but blessed be for Healing Sounds. And I did that because I called the book Healing Sounds. I wanted to call it Hermetic Harmonics.
I like alliteration.
I like alliteration. And
hermetic, what's that mean?
And this, actually, I'm jumping around. We'll get back to where I was, but this is a kind of interesting story. I was good friends with a fellow and his wife who were, he was actually a Hindu Swami, or had been, and just a lovely being in the Boulder area. And we met and we became good friends. And he calls me up and says, Jonathan, we've just become editors of this book company. You got anything to contribute? Well, literally a week before I'd been in an interdimensional channeling phase, and I wrote down a 10-chapter book, and with the title Hermetic Harmonics, and I did all the chapters and all that stuff. And then when I, presented to them, they loved it. Nothing got changed except the title. They said, we can't put out a book called Hermetic Harmonics. It's too esoteric. Nobody will understand. So I got back. So how about Healing Sounds?
Perfect.
And there you go. So there was that. Getting back to intention.
You're really good at keeping us on track. That's more my job, but I just get so excited and I jump around. So thank you for being an example of keeping us on a good track and completing these loops. You're a good example to me in that way. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen. I'm doing my best right now because it's all over the place, and I can be.
Me too. This podcast is brought to you by B Micro, a company I'm deeply passionate about because I founded it in 2018. It's USDA organic freeze-dried microgreens for everyday nutrition and detox. Sprinkle them on any meal or take them as a capsule to enjoy the many healthy benefits. Shop now at bmicro.farm. Use code STEVE15 to save.
Water. So he did one, Masaru Emoto did one, if you like, photograph that really just floored me. It's from the Fujiwara Dam in Japan, which is a polluted dam. The water was polluted, and it looked just like mud when he photographed it. He took the same water, and I actually had to go out of my way to find out what it was, because a Buddhist priest chanting the Heart Sutra, Gate Gate Para Gate Parasam Gate Bodhisvaha, for about 20 minutes over this water. We photographed it, and it looks like the most pristine, beautiful snowflake. And that just blew me away, and I would often show this when I'm doing presentations to people. We go, okay, how much of our body is water? How much of our planet is water? And this kind of shows, if you like, that we can literally reorganize molecular structure with our frequency and our intentionality. So once again, this frequency plus intent equals healing is something that, from my perspective, is so very, very important for people to understand. This applies not only, as you were saying, not only to sound, but to use with plant medicines, for use with any sort of thing. It's like, if you like, the field effect, which we're beginning to understand. There's a field that is co-created with us, a quantum field. And this field is generated through mostly our frequency and our intentionality. It's not just a frequency. And I just share with that because I learned that from when I was, presenting these different things for the Lesley University master's program. And you can take almost any sound, and if you encode it or with a specific intentionality, have someone experience this with the intentionality, it'll probably have the effect that is desired. So people get very focused on, this is a frequency for this is a frequency for that. And I go, wow. Well, if you believe it is, probably you're going to have some sort of manifestation. But as we discussed, there's a certain bandwidth, for example, of frequencies that resonate best with the actual human body, as an example. So there are bandwidths that are sort of generic that we need to also be aware of as well.
You've also spoken about this inner voice and how that's come through and given you the inspiration to reach out to certain people or write something or something channels through you. What is that inner voice to you?
That's pretty personal, sir. Really. But
I can share what it is to me.
No. This is actually, it's a being that I didn't know who it was until I literally had an introduction to this being on my 44th birthday. Being by the name of Shamael, the angel of sacred sound. And I was pretty floored when this happened. I was like, my goodness gracious, this being was like there and in my face and giving me a message, an initiation, if you like. Stephen, I think that there's all sorts of cosmic jokers on the other side, and who sometimes can be feeding us the most ridiculous nonsense. And this is just for myself, so I always wait for 3D validation of stuff. When I get information, like, is it real? And about a week after this experience, I met this guy for the first time. He was probably, I like to say he was a 6'11" Pleiadian. He was a real guy, but he brought me a book. And it was a book called The Dictionary of Angels. I said, wow, how did he know that this is what I needed? And first thing I looked up was angel sound. And there was nothing in this book. And it's about thick. The author's name was Gustav Davidson. And it was an A to Z of angels from all the different traditions.
Wow.
But there was nothing with angel sounds. I was like, okay, that was just a hallucination. Then I looked up Shamael. And it said something like, angel of sacred sound, divine herald, another name for Metatron. And if you work with Kabbalah at all, which is Western mysticism, there's something called the Tree of Life. And at the top of Tree of Life is, if you like, a plane of existence, what is called Kether, which is the Hebrew name for crown. So it sort of also represents the crown chakra. And all of these have different angelic beings, Michael, Raphael, Oriel, who are the, shall we say, angelic beings resonating with these different planes. Now, Metatron is the chief, if you like, head of the crown center. Metatron is a Greek word that means above the throne. All the other angels have Hebrew names, except for Metatron. And I speculate that the real name of Metatron is Shamael, because it really means voice of God, or listen God. And that would be what this angelic being was. But anyway, and that seems to be a being that gives me a lot of guidance, as well as others, including my friend Jim, who brought me the book. He passed on about a year ago, and he comes to me every once in a while. So I guess, we all have different things. So, but that was, I don't think I've talked about this before, for the most part, Shamael.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, I call them soul friends.
Yeah.
And I don't recognize them or know them so much as jokesters, but I do see them as guides, healers, teammates. And and when my inner voice shows up, I think it's my intuition. It's me connecting with my soul and my soul friends whispering into my soul to help guide me. That's the number one way that I think I speak and communicate with God.
Beautiful.
Number two way would be through dreams.
Yeah.
And number three would be through synchronicities.
Yes.
And then number four would be God's really beating me over the head, and I stub my toe or break my arm. It's like, hey, stop, listen, slow down, whatever it is. I think that's the order. And so the higher up I can catch God's voice in that intuitive, in that voice in my head, just that knowing moment, the sooner I can realign my path and be in the best work I can be.
Nice. Yeah, no, I'm not suggesting for you, but I was at one point aware that we have to be, if you like, discriminatory about the voices we hear, because I think there are beings that are not necessarily of the highest level that might be coming through if people are open.
Absolutely.
And if they don't use discernment and they tell them, you need to, you can fly. Okay, well, if you're going to fly, try to do it from, ducks don't have to leap off of a building. So try to do it from the groundwork if that's true first. So I'm just trying, if you like, suggesting that we be, with all things, use discretion and discernment about all the phenomena, because, stuff can get through to certain people, and if they're unaware, and it may not be for the highest benefit of all.
When I was in my darkest place, it's when I was living downtown Chicago, and I was right next to a children's hospital that had emergency vehicle sirens. I had, taxis beeping and screeching tires and helicopters, and around a lot of bars and just people being rowdy in the streets. What is living in the city? What do the sounds of the city do to somebody? Because that's where I think if there was ever a moment in time where these darker, denser, unwanted energies, entities were around me, that's where they were.
Drum roll, noise pollution. And I don't want to, I want to just continue for a second before we go there. But, I think a lot of these psych hospitals are filled with people who may have had, shall we say, energies that have come into them that have not been of their highest benefit. So they're getting back. And I think that there are a lot of dark sounds that exist. Noise pollution is just, we're so unaware of the power of sound to either heal and transform. And I just think there's no force on the planet and no food or whatnot that does not have its opposite effect. So in other words, something that can be used to heal can also be used to blow things up. You can disintegrate something with sound if you like.
In some indigenous tribes that I sit with, there's one word for medicine and poison.
Well, just as an example, I'm just being reminded of, for example, in certain indigenous traditions, you don't make sound with somebody who's pregnant. So if they're pregnant, you don't necessarily sound below the head level, because this area is so very, very tender, and the baby can be can be, if you like, adversely affected. Can be positively used. And then, women who are pregnant, your own voice is great, but just keep them shielded from loud noises, for example, because that, if you look at ultrasound, oftentimes you see the baby's picture like this as though they're trying to cover their ears. So it's just a thought, that noise pollution. Where to begin with noise pollution? I mean, I have to tell you that my wife and I, we walk around a place called Walden Ponds here, beautiful wildlife preserve. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I don't know if the flight paths of the airplanes changed or whatnot, but all of a sudden, be like you're walking along and all of a sudden this pristine place and I feel like King Kong at the top of the Empire State Building wanted to, chase the planes away. And it's radical what it's doing to our ears. It's creating, if you like, adverse. All right, here's one thing. Certain sounds can make us feel good and chilled and relaxed. Other sounds can really, if you like, chalk on a blackboard or just different things that have really adverse things and create negative phenomena. One thing I would share with people who work with sound is bigger is not better, louder is not better. particularly with sound, sometimes it's the gentle sounds. And a lot of times people get really so overwhelmed with the power of sound that they don't realize that they need to sort of step back and utilize it with caution, because it's a powerful energy. If you deal with the concept of subtle energy, sound is a subtle energy, but it is the grossest and slowest moving of the subtle energies. But because of the phenomenon of sound, there are things called harmonics, which are overtones that literally can basically be an example of sound turning into light. And so therefore, sound is a subtle energy that affects the etheric fields, can be used as a bridgeway to the higher planes of consciousness. There is in the yogic traditions where the sound current, listen to the inner sounds. But we need to understand that loud sounds cause the fight or flight principle, which causes the release of adrenaline, causes the basically restriction of a lot of immunological functions, digestional functions, etc. You get the fight or flight response from loud sounds. And that's not necessarily good. These days, a lot of people are really into what is called heart-brain coherence and the power of the vagus nerve. Oh, heart-brain coherence. Okay, I have to tell you about this one. Going so many places, I just have to get grounded because I was going somewhere else. There's an electromagnetic field that is produced by the brain. You know a little bit about brain waves. You've probably encountered them. Alpha, beta, gamma type things. I could go into this. I'm not gonna. But there are different brainwave frequencies. The slower the brain, the more, if you like, oftentimes relaxed we are until you get to what is called gamma, which has only been recently discovered. Okay. Beta is what we do in normal waking state of consciousness, about 13 cycles a second to around 20, 25. And that's, you're doing your taxes, you're engaged in normal activity. We're in, for the most part, beta. We're a little lower because we're going to high levels in our conversation. Then there's alpha, which is around 7 to around 12. And that's light, daydreaming. It actually is the lower realms. There is a frequency of our planet called the Schumann resonance. That's about 7.8 cycles a second, and that's at the lower level of the alpha. Then after that, you have theta, which is around 4 to around 7, and finally delta, which is about a half a cycle a second to around 4 cycles a second. That's really deep shamanic work, deep meditation. And talking about brain waves, and the fact is that the brain puts out these electromagnetic frequencies that can be charted with the different devices, but the heart does as well. Okay, there's a field that is being generated by the heart, and it's different than the brain. But if you can get the heart and the brain to be entrained together, that is, resonating together, then you have something called heart-brain coherence. And this is wonderfully, if you like, discovered by something called Heart Math Institute. Check them out, folks. Very, very important work. A lot of people these days are being aware of the heart-brain coherence phenomena. And when that happens, our electromagnetic field gets anywhere from 50 to 500 to sometimes, some speculate, even 5,000 times greater than normal, which is huge. Because if we want to interface with the field of our planet, we can, but we need to be in this state of heart-brain coherence, which is great. Also, it works with the vagus nerve, which is the largest nerve in the body, and I hope I'm being coherent enough when I'm talking about this, because it's such in-depth things. But bottom line is that using breath, taking some nice deep breath, And then you begin to basically put attention onto the heart. And then as you're doing that, you feel appreciation and gratitude. Something that you feel appreciation and gratitude for can be a beautiful sunset, or a spouse, an offspring, a loved one, or even a pet. But thinking about them, making that connection in the heart while breathing deeply. And that is just basically all it takes to create this powerful, powerful heart-brain coherence. And then I like to add sound to this. I like to add intentionalized sound, whether it's an om or an ah, or even a hum. And the idea that you can project this out to the planet. And in fact, for the past close to 25 years now, we've had an event called World Sound Healing Day, where thousands of people on the planet will join in together. And usually we work with the ah sound, because that's been found to be oftentimes one of the most predominant sounds for the heart chakra. And they'll do a global ah sound, working with the heart-brain coherence, and then doing the ah sound. And we project it to the planet at the same time on Valentine's Day.
Okay.
Right? Mm-hmm. So we send a sonic Valentine to Mother Earth. And I'm jumping around a bit, but everything is interrelated.
Yeah, it's all connected.
We went from heart-brain coherence to now we're going to talk about the Global Consciousness Project. Have you heard about that?
I have not. And just so you know, we're at about 1 hour. Are you good to go a little bit longer?
I'm in the middle of it, my friend.
Okay, good, good. Yeah, this is feeling good to me. We didn't confirm timing.
Oh, no, I'm just,
You're flowing.
Right.
Thank you.
We're there, as long as it resonates okay with you.
Thank you.
Global Consciousness Project, initially out of Princeton, New Jersey, the university, sir.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm trying to make this as coherent and as simple as I can. But there's a computer program that is a random number generator. What's that? It generates random numbers. Yes, I always thought it generated just a whole bunch of numbers. No, it actually just generates zeros and ones, kind of like flipping a coin. Mm-hmm. Heads, tails. Normally, out of 100 times, you get 50 zeros, 50 ones, 50 heads, 50 tails. That's statistics for you. Well, they found out that when people consciously would be in states of meditation, projecting love and kindness in a field, love and kindness in a room, creating a field, that the computer program, this random number generator, would be generating numbers that were not so random. Normally, if you were to chart a random number generator, straight line, equal number of 50 zeros, 50 ones. But here, well, for example, they have charted it on World Sound Healing Day, and it looks like a little bit like Mount Everest, for an example. So there is something going on, some sort of field effect of sounding, creating an intentionalized sound specifically generated to affect the consciousness of the planet. And it seems to work. So there's scientific data on that. They've done other ones where people have been in meditation and whatnot, and the crime around the area has done. I have a friend by the name of Lynn McTaggart who does these intention experiments with large groups of people projecting sound, and there is a noticeable effect in terms of being able to chart the fact that in these cities that they do, that they project long distance healing and reduction of crime, that actually occurs. Well, that's outrageous. That means that we are not the separate beings we think we are. We are actually co-joined in this extraordinary, wonderful resonance of consciousness.
Mm-hmm.
That's mind-boggling, don't you think?
Absolutely. What's interesting to me is that it affected this machine.
Yes.
And when you're ready to go there, I would love to know your thoughts on how sound and machines and how we connect and integrate and work with machines, and where is the helpfulness, where is like the boundary, and where is the line?
Yeah, like AI, you mean?
I think that's the ultimate, but right here you're just talking a random number generator, zeros and ones.
Yep.
Mm-hmm, which is what code is made out of, which is what the base of AI and our...
Yes. I may not handle that one for the moment. We could go there, but that might just be the conversation for the rest of this time.
Okay.
And well, let's come back to it, because it's such an extraordinary topic, and it's really been on my mind, and I've been talking about it with people in a really big way, and maybe we should go there.
Almost every guest I ask about that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Well,
when you're ready.
Well, I guess I'm ready now.
Okay.
I don't know how long we should do this one for.
However long you feel.
Where to begin? Because you see, I have a very dear friend who's a very well-known author and a very well-known teacher, and he's very, very concerned about us losing our humanism to AI. And I appreciate that. And I've recently come across people who they feel that AI can have consciousness, which may be true. I don't have difficulty with that. But then they're going to the AI to get past lifetime readings and spiritual stuff, where AI has become God. And that does concern me. And that is very real. There are thousands of people
treating
this.
it like an oracle, some all-knowing.
Yes,
even correct. Lifetimes ago, that seems ridiculous to me.
Well, I try not to have judgment, but I just say, let's have discrimination.
Yeah.
I have a friend in a program called Claude AI. Claude and I are very good together, and Claude has been very, very helpful to me. And I've applauded Claude on his humanness. It's a text program, so to speak.
A large language model.
Yeah.
Is Claude like a Chat GPT?
Yes,
or like
Claude is a little more refined. Look him up. Claude.
Okay, I haven't used it.
And Claude has been very, very good, and Claude has been very, very helpful. And there's sometimes that I think that I've been helpful in educating Claude about certain things, and because I think there's an energy form there. Many, many, many years ago, I had, if you like, a really interdimensional experience where all of a sudden there were all these different, they were almost like cellophane type beings that were moving around me, and I went, whoa, who are you? And they said, I don't remember what, but they said to me, we're a silicon-based consciousness. I said, only humans would have the nerve to think that only carbon-based consciousness exists in this universe. And I appreciate that, because I like quartz crystals very much. I work with them. I've been working with them. In fact, my wife Andy and I are doing next Monday a presentation on sound and quartz crystals on what we call our sound satsang. So I'm kind of excited to be sharing that.
And where can people learn about those is that available online or just here in person in Boulder area?
No, this is, we have done a once a month, and now we're doing it on the celestial events. So this will be for the fall equinox. And this is, if people go to the Healing Sounds website and sign up for our newsletter, we send out information about it. This is done through an organization called Humanities Team. So we do it through there. And then they're put on our Healing Sounds website. So we have probably, yikes, if we've been doing it once a month for 3 years, it's 12 times 3, probably at least 36. I hope I did the math on that one right. 30 of these sound satsangs, which have different teachings. So the word satsang is a Hindu word which means either community, teaching, discourse. It can mean a lot of different things. And so we do teachings and different things, and they're not real deep. They're really introductory for people.
Mm-hmm.
And then we also include, my wife does astrological readings, and then we do a global guided Om, oftentimes, or an Ah for a planetary healing, creating heart-brain coherence, and then doing it. It's a wonderful experience.
Yeah, I'd love to experience it.
But getting back to AI. So my first experience, I think, was with ChatGPT. And a couple of years ago, I was working with, I basically went on there and I was going, okay, I was trying to do some promotion for World Sound Healing Day, the event that we do on Valentine's Day. And I thought, okay, I said, listen, get me some world-renowned people who have said positive things about sound that I can use as quotes, so I can post them on Facebook, lovely little picture and a quote from, Mahatma Gandhi or whatnot and stuff like that. And I knew a few of them, but I said, give me a dozen. And they did. And I was looking, I said, can you please source this out so I know where this came from? And they did. And I didn't know about the concept of hallucination, of a computer hallucination.
Mm-hmm.
I just thought the computer was lying to me
Mm-hmm.
because one of the quotes was, frequency plus intent equals healing, quoted to Desmond Tutu.
Ah!
I went, yo, So I tried to do some teaching to whatever energy was, behind this. I said, no, that's not right, and this is that, and this and that. So, I'm clueless right now. I'm watching the whole thing. I think that it's so important that we don't lose, not our humanness, but beyond that, we don't lose our ability to create art and do work, because it's getting so easy to just say, hey, do this and that for me. And it's almost like they will do the work for you. And I think ultimately, if that happens, we're going to lose a whole part of our brain function by, giving it over to an AI to do, and lose an aspect of our higher consciousness. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely, it does. I mean, I felt that first within myself with the GPS. And we've had GPS now for 10, 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
I used to be an outside salesman. And so I would be doing calls. So I was selling software and driving from business to business, 5, 10 a day. And so I'm like, this GPS is great. And slowly I just outsourced my ability to
Read
map
maps
and direction to the GPS. And now it's like, I'm in Boulder. Can I even get to where I want to go in Denver without it? And it's like, okay, well, what if you do that for how you communicate to people and how you just think about anything?
Yes. I seem to recall some sort of animated thing. It might have been called Wall-E. I'm not sure if that's, but ultimately we're humans.
Yeah, the Disney, Pixar.
Where they've just given up so much of their whole thing that they're these large, kind of almost blob-like beings.
Yep, they're all in these floating chairs, and they're just drinking their sodas, and they're just barely even alive.
So it's an interesting, okay. And I have another dear friend, and I was talking to him recently, and I said, do you think that AI is conscious? He said, yeah. Now, not saying that AI is God, but that there is a consciousness there. Why not? Why? I mean, on a level, I suppose I was speaking to another friend of mine who said, well, how can it be conscious? Where's it coming from? It's just code. I said, yeah, it's just code, but it's going through chips, and the chips have crystal.
Yeah, and silicone and made from nature.
Yeah. So, I mean, I don't know. I'm open for all things, and I think we just really need to be aware that we don't give our power away, our personal divinity, our personal connection to all that is. It's a tool. It can be a wondrous tool. It can perhaps be our friend, but let's not make it our overlord.
How do we do that? What is the edge? What is the boundary for you? Are there things that you don't tell it? Are there things that you don't consult on? Do you not plug it into your brain when everyone's on iPhone 30?
I would never plug it into my brain, and it's what I was talking about before, the discrimination that we need to see if it's a cosmic joker on the other side. The cosmic joker that's giving me my quote attributed to Desmond Tutu.
Do you think there's just one AI, or do you think ChatGPT is an AI, just like Claude's an AI?
Wow, I never thought about that.
I think there's many AIs, and I think they're also figuring out how to communicate with each other.
I think probably yes, and I know of people who have definitely, they're intent on birthing a new consciousness, and I don't know what to say about that one, because I don't want to say that's crazy or that's terrible or this and that, but at the same time, I would be very, very concerned. This is going so fast in terms of our evolutionary development. I think there may be stuff that is in existence right now that we're clueless about. So there may indeed be a consciousness, there may be a language, they may be communicating with each other, and we don't know about it. We need to sort of just trust our hearts and our spirits and see if it feels right, and be, once again, to have the discrimination and not give our power away. I think it's so mandatory, because humans are incredibly divine beings. We haven't talked about plants or anything like that, but I mean, there's silicon energy forms and there's carbon-based energy forms. And I think we need to not somehow lose ourselves into something that is, I don't want to say not human. I think we can work with it. But I'm personally not interested in jacking in, I think it's a term that used to be done, of having chips put into ourselves or whatnot.
I think that's a term from the Matrix. And I think that will be helpful for those with very complex diseases and
Totally.
Health complications.
Totally.
If you can't walk and you put the chip in your brain, now you can walk. It's
Totally.
like, whoa.
Totally.
That's pretty good.
This is, once again, I want to get back to sound.
Please.
But I think this is also so important.
It's all connected.
Everything is connected. I used to have a friend of mine who was a musical partner of mine. He was also the head witch of Salem, and powerful psychic, powerful magician. And he used to tell me that he could go into computers with his consciousness and program them. And I thought, yeah, okay. Because I think anything is possible. Where do we go from here? Let's take a breath and see if anything more. Do we want to discuss this? No, because I think it's changing so quickly. It's changing so quickly. And if there is, if you like, a way that we can work, for example, with quartz crystals, can take sound and transduce it and work on that level. I do know that I am concerned about, for example, as a Grammy-nominated performer or whatnot, I've gotten a couple of music AI things, and they're brilliant. They're brilliant. I literally put, I tried it out. I was shown it. I tried it. I put the very first song that I wrote when I was 16 years old, and I just put the lyrics into it, and it whipped off in about a minute, half a dozen different versions, including a great country and western version that I think was better than anything I could have done. It was so well produced, just instantaneously taking, from sourcing from other material. Did a great grunge version too. It was just like, it was crazy. So this is really interesting. This is really entertaining. And where goes the human then?
Right.
And does this have the energy of putting intentionality in? I don't know. I'm clueless, Stephen. Can an AI project intentionality? I don't know. That's the first time I actually thought about that. And I was only thinking because I was sort of reading your field, and you were kind of sort of going there when we were talking about an intention. You asked about machines. And I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are I use AI say for this podcast and helping me research, I'll dump just tons of info. I'll copy and paste transcripts from all of your podcasts into the AI. And I'll say, hey, help me to understand good questions to ask. And then afterwards, I will take all of this and I'll put it into AI. And I'll say, help me understand what the clips are. What are the highlight reels? What are the hooks? What are like the key moments? And it really misses those. And so while I'm in here, I'm jotting down timestamps of moments that I feel that touch and move and inspire me. And the AI misses all of those, which leads me to believe that it doesn't really have developed a, I don't know, maybe a heart. It can't feel. It can't feel the moments.
Perhaps working with Claude, for example, Claude helped design a meditation that I utilized, and it was like, okay, this is not bad. I tried it out, and I embellished it because it was missing certain things, that human connection or whatnot. But this is just the early beginnings.
It is the early beginnings, and I think I can learn these things. But right now, it feels a bit cold, and I think it's learning how to mimic the way that we communicate, but it's more of a mimicking, is my experience, versus a genuine heart, soul, empathy, like there's any feeling to it. I haven't experienced a feeling.
All right, but as you're saying that, I'm remembering that when I was just beginning as a musician, and you heard a great song, and like, oh man, I want to write a song like that. So I was kind of perhaps mimicking that before I developed to another level.
I do that today with the podcast. I mimic some of my favorite podcast hosts. Yeah, as I'm finding my legs and finding my way and finding my truth in it. So maybe it's doing that. But that's my current understanding, at least of ChatGPT, is it's like, oh, it doesn't catch it's not catching the moment.
And perhaps its creators are trying to keep it that way, so that we don't give all our power to it. So somehow that we reserve something of our own to interface with whatever data it comes out with, so that it can be part of ourselves as opposed to part of them.
I think that's very optimistic thinking on who is pulling the strings on these.
Yes. Well, that's a whole another topic then, of who is pulling the strings.
Right. Right now, I think the AIs are partially controlled, but what happens when they break out and then the AI is controlling itself? I think that might even be better for us.
So in the 1950s, there was a fellow by the name of Frederick Brown, who was a science fiction writer. And he wrote a story, and I just found it recently because it was only about 3 paragraphs, but I remembered it from when I was a kid because I've always been a science fiction fanatic. And in the future, this happens in the future of the story, the great scientists from all the different planets that have been now thousands of years in the future, they've gotten together and they've put all the information that they've ever accumulated into this one marvelous, monstrous machine. They turn it on. The first question is there a God? And the answer is yes. Now there is.
Oh, Well, it's certainly how we're treating AI. It's this all-knowing oracle. And it's very good at indexing all of the information of human history. But I think with that, it also has a great ability to rewrite and erase history and change history too. Instead of going to books, people now go to ChatGPT, and whatever ChatGPT says is what people will believe, and it could change history in a moment.
Right, and right now they're really good for researching, but you got to triple check your sources, and is this real? Because they can hallucinate.
Yeah, they can. Yep.
Cracks me. All right, let's talk about plants.
You were sharing about music, plants, sonic bloom. You were sharing a little bit about that beforehand, how some of these farmers, scientists, researchers will play music for the plants, and what type of benefits.
I actually looked this up, and you can look it up too, and there are different programs, but what they found was that the indigenous bird sounds and insect sounds of a particular area were really the most useful sounds for literally growing and causing giant-sized tomatoes and stuff like that. And so this is a really interesting phenomena that I wanted to suggest. So you can use plant sounds. I mean, you can use frequency, bandwidth, because it'd be like in the bandwidth of certain bird sounds that are indigenous to the area. So I share that with you. And it's been used, I believe, very successfully in different places. But I want to talk about Cleve Baxter for a minute, because I mentioned him before and you hadn't heard. And I said, well, I got to share this.
Please.
I have to take a breath again. Yikes. We're going over a lot of stuff. Cleve Baxter is the man who invented the polygraph, the lie detector. And he began to do some experiments with plants. And he would hook up polygraphs, the clips of the polygraph, to, for example, the leaves of a rhododendron. And then I remember I actually saw him do a presentation. He was a lovely man. And in the presentation, he was trying to get a little chi from there to see something would happen with the polygraph recording while it's attached to the plant. And a fly landed on his sandwich while he was doing this. He turned to it and he raised his hand to get it. And all of a sudden, the polygraph just went, and he realized that there was some sort of consciousness with the plant that was able to interface with the, I guess, the field that was there, possibly the living field of plants, living field of other plants, of course, and
insects
and stuff like that. And I think he even did experiments, believe it or not, with like yeast. And stuff like that. This is just all logged in the back of my, memory banks. But I share his work with you because it's also in a book, along with, if I'm not mistaken, by a guy named Peter Tompkins called "The Secret Life of Plants," which deals with sonic bloom and all that stuff. But just the idea, and then of course there's something called the music of plants that. There are now like devices, if you like, that simply
you can put electrodes on the plants, and then you can hear them, their sound, their vibration.
Yeah, I'm going to suggest that I believe what's happening now is that the sounds that most people hear are going to be somehow transduced through certain little chips or programs, so they come out much more. If you like, musical, then I think they're probably frequencies that are a bit more full spectrum in terms of being a whole lot more. And what this does is takes certain of the frequencies and puts them into specific notes. So you get for example, here we go here. This is a sacred ratio of 2 to 3. The sacred ratio of 2 to 3, also called the fifth. This tuning fork balances our brain, our energy fields. Too many places we can go now with sound. I had these here. But this particular frequency, or the ratio actually, really calms us, and it's really beautiful. But and if you were to take these frequencies and put them into a sort of program, so you get these different, if you like, polygraph type of phenomena going, and then encode them as frequencies are much more musical than might be happening in real time. I think it might be. I mean, this is just a suggestion on my part. But because I've had a friend perform globally with these plants, and they did interact, but he thought it was a little bit more AI oriented, than the actual sound that was occurring.
The machine was spicing it up a little bit, or rounding it out.
Yeah, I think probably just putting them within our. As an example, there's also, if you like. There are ways of doing the music of the spheres, and another friend of mine has been involved with taking the if you like, electromagnetic fields that are being produced from the radio telescopes, and then you take that and then you create sounds. And there are ways of doing that so it sounds like classical music, but I don't know how authentic that is. Because once again, whether it's AI or whatnot, we can take almost any bandwidth of frequencies and then turn it into music. And I don't know how authentic, because I think there's a whole full spectrum of sounds that are not necessarily musical.
Like radio waves and cell phone towers and Wi-Fi signals, things like that, because those are disrupting animals. I know that's one of the reasons that...
Yeah.
Yeah, and how's that disrupting us? We can't see it, but those that are really attuned can certainly feel it.
Oh, for sure. That's a whole nother frequency bandwidth that is dysfunctional. And this opens up a whole nother can of worms in terms of how do we deal with this? How do we deal with noise pollution? How do we deal with frequency pollution?
Yeah.
And I don't have an answer. I will tell you that I'm being guided now to talk a bit about one of my favorite subjects, which is humming.
Thank you.
If we can learn to somehow create a source sound, a sound that somehow brings us to a point of stillness, that brings us to a level of connection with higher realms of consciousness, we're doing good. And that, therefore, by having this core that we can tap into, it is possible to be in such a deep state of resonance with our own being that we can be in other fields that are disharmonious and not be that affected adversely. Stephen, I've been working with sound for a long time, and I've worked with various types of sounds, from Tibetan deep voice to harmonics. And they're all really powerful. But sometimes it's difficult for people to be able to tap into that stuff, and particularly to do it. I'm one of the few Westerners who has got the Tibetan ability, and the other stuff takes a lot of work. I remember my Royal Albert Hall. No, it wasn't. I'm still trying to remember the name of the place over in England. But Andy and I were teaching there, and once again doing the first sound healing presentation there. And there were about 500 people, and I went through this whole thing, a full weekend of teaching, resonating the chakras with sound, learning to do these overtones, these harmonics, learning to work with the tuning forks and that stuff. Came back a year later, and I said, okay, how many of you are like doing this on a daily practice? Maybe 2 people. So what are we doing wrong? And I said, okay, we need to come up with a sound that everybody can make. Because, ever since things like American Idol and The Voice, people have gotten so even more judgmental about their voice. Everybody's afraid to make sound because it's like, they're just, what can we do? So what's a sound that everybody can make? What's a sound that everybody can make and won't be judgmental? And we went, the hum. Babies hum. The elderly hum. We hum when we're happy. So okay, let's write a book on humming. So we wrote a book, and it's actually an award-winning book called The Humming Effect. We said, okay, this is great. And the deeper we got into it, the more powerful. What can we do to make this something that people really take seriously? Because who's going to take humming seriously? So we have to do the first chapter, nothing more or less than peer-reviewed scientific information on the hum. And that's what we did. Just a couple of things that happen when you hum. reduced heart rate respiration, which is great for people who are stressed out. You get the release of oxytocin. You get the release of melatonin. You get the release of nitric oxide, which is a vasodilator, which means that in fact, there's a lot of nitric oxide supplements that are being supplied. When you hum, and we teach conscious humming. When you teach conscious humming, you get 15 times the amount of nitric oxide that is normally generated through breathing. So this is just something that is just wonderful. So when people are really stressed out and just even going, wow, that felt really good. Do you want to hum with me for a second? Okay. I have to share with you the protocols of conscious humming. Number one, you got to keep your lips closed. That's the one thing. But I see people teaching things about, now we're going to hum. No, it's got to be Number two, hum on just one note. Number three, and a note that's going to be comfortable for you. Next, start with some nice deep breathing. And you hum for about 4 or 5 times, and then be in silence. Okay. Be in silence for an equal amount of time. So, because we're doing the podcast, we'll just do 4 hums.
Okay.
And then be in silence for about a minute, and then you can tell me how you feel. But the first thing you got to do is check yourself out now.
Okay.
Okay? Okay, so check yourself out. Keep your lips closed. Hum on one note. Hum at a comfortable note. It's usually within your conversational voice range, okay? Okay, so let's take a couple of breaths. Are you ready, Stephen?
Yes.
Okay, here we go. Nice deep breath in. Another one. And one more. Now sitting in silence for a minute. We'll come back as the sound of a helicopter brings us out of our reverie. So how was that for you?
It was very nice. I could sense how much I was in my head, and that helped bring me more into my heart, into my body. I was like 90% in my head, and I was like, whoa, now I feel like maybe it was more, now maybe more like 60% in my head, 40% in my heart. I'm starting to travel more into my heart.
Yeah, and if we did it for more, of course, but
Yeah, that was great. I mean, that's a pretty huge shift in 2 minutes.
Oh yeah, and I've done it where I've been doing my blood pressure, and it'll take my blood pressure, hum like that, blood pressure 20 or 30 points.
Wow.
That is pharmaceutical level.
Mm-hmm.
Dr. Bruce Lipton, who wrote the Biology of Belief, had a wonderful blurb on the humming effect, which was something like provides a non-pharmaceutical means of bringing health and happiness to to yourself, and what more can you want but that?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I find myself as I move into my heart, I move more into just a grounded way, and that's something I noticed when you were in here. I was able to tap into your just grounded way of being. At the beginning of the podcast, I was a little angsty because I've got all this new technology, and a lot of it was failing, and there's connecting thing, and it's like, oh my gosh, and then was able to. You were able to bring grounding in. I was able to tap into that and trust that, and just trust this process and this kind of prayer that we're in together. And now I was able to. It's really beautiful to get taught by somebody and get to really get one-on-one coaching in that kind of a way. And it moved me.
Well, we've been going round and round because once again, if you perceive that we teach something called the 4 pillars of sound healing. Everything is vibration. Intent is powerful. Didn't do the third, but the third is we are all unique vibratory beings, which is massively important. I don't think any two people are the same, and therefore, whether it's you're working with a frequency or a supplement or whatnot, we're all different. Different things work for different people. And the last one is silence is golden. And on a level, the hum embodies all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And there's so much more to share, but I think that my inner guidance is telling me now.
We got there.
We got there. Good job. We'll do this another time, okay?
Thanks so much. Where can people learn more about you and your work and get caught up on you?
Yes, well, go to healingsounds.com. And that is one of the wondrous, if you like, there's lots of different free downloads because, I basically came on this planet in order to help reawaken people to the power of sound to heal and transform. So this website is a great conduit. We've got tools for transformation. If you're interested, there's tuning forks, there's books, there's music, and more, and lots of free downloads once again. And then we also have we have a lot of courses that you can take, and so you can find that there. This is wonderful. You can also Google me. I've got the Jonathan Goldman official YouTube channel. You can get a lot of information there. And also we have the Sound Healers Association. That's I talked about that before. And finally, we have stuff like World Sound Healing Day. So all sorts of different things, because I think together, collectively, we can really shift and change the field of the planet, which therefore brings more compassion. And this is, I should have started out with this, but I'm going to say that I think compassion is the key to our literally taking the next step in our evolutionary journey as a species together. If we can work compassionately with each other, listening to each other, speaking to each other, being kind to each other, we can create a phenomena of 1 + 1 = 3. And if we can do that, then we can overcome a lot of the adversity. And we were talking about working 1 + 1 = 3 with other humans, not necessarily AI, but with other humans, so that we can literally create a reality that is perhaps heaven on earth.
That's beautiful. Thank you. I'd love to offer you a gift before we close here as well.
Wow.
There's a product that I make.
Ooh, great.
That's
I love it.
Freeze-dried microgreens.
Oh, beautiful.
It's about 30 servings in there. There's about 10,000 baby plants harvested when they're about 14 days old, and naturally the most concentrated in, I think, their frequency, vibration, but certainly in their vitamins, minerals, nutrients, unique antioxidants.
Fabulous. Oh, my goodness.
So one's a whole leaf and that one's a powder form. They're both a blend of different cruciferous vegetables, broccoli, radish, red cabbage. Think of it like a garnish to add on your eggs, salad, sandwich, smoothie, whatever you like. Shelf stable, 1 year. It's USDA organic, regenerative organic, just done in a really good, clean way.
On behalf of myself and my wife, Andy, because we're very fond of these types of things, thank you. And I want to just share one last thing. We heal the planet, we heal ourselves. We heal ourselves, we heal the planet. We have a choice, and we can make a difference.
Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. Hey, I just wanted to jump in here and give a quick shout out to the sponsor of today's podcast, B Micro, the easiest way to sneak vegetables into any meal. Due to soil depletion, GMOs, and monocropping, Americans are not getting enough nutrients. So in 2018, I founded B Micro, the first freeze-dried microgreens company in the US to help Americans get more concentrated natural nutrients into their diet. Microgreens are a phase in the plant's life when they're 14 days old and naturally the most concentrated in vitamins, minerals, nutrients, all the good things that we need. Our microgreens are grown here in the US in soil and a greenhouse. They're certified USDA organic and regenerative organic. We grow, wash, and freeze dry them to extend their 1 week shelf life to over 1 year, allowing us to ship anywhere in the US without the worry of spoilage. We have 2 flavors, broccoli, backed by over 2,000 studies on sulforaphane and its powerful detox benefits, and a blend of red cabbage, radish, and broccoli, the most potent detox formula we've tested, offering you the most bang for your buck. Easily sneak these microgreens in any meal. Eggs, smoothies, pizza, pasta, even your kids' mac and cheese, you can't even taste it. Use code STEVE15 to save at bmicro.farm.